Hello and welcome to another Ask Cheeky. I'm Isaiah Henkel, a Cheeky Scientist. This week's question comes from Jeremy Randall. I don't have a job and need one urgently. Where do I start? I don't know where to start. Jeremy, great question. And when I get questions like this, I like to ask what I would do currently in today's hiring market, today's world, not what somebody else would do in years past. Things change very quickly when it comes to a job search. What can you use today to get hired is different than what it was even 6 months ago. So if I were you, what would I do? The first thing is you have to get some materials in order. Something that you can give to other people as you meet them. If you set up informational interviews, which I'll talk about, networking, etc., very often people will ask you for your resume. They'll meet you and go to your LinkedIn profile right away. One of the biggest mistakes that I see PhDs making is they start their job search and they don't spend enough time on their resume and their LinkedIn profile. Even if they don't know where to start, you need to figure out how to showcase yourself as a professional, as someone who's ready for industry before you even figure out which job is right for you. And this comes down to your professional profiles, which are, again, those two things, your resume and your LinkedIn profile. So you're probably asking, okay, if I don't know what jobs that I'm targeting, how do I get my LinkedIn profile, my resume in shape? You should have an idea of what your skill sets are, what positions might be available to you. You can certainly get your work experience, your skill sets, etc., communicated effectively in a resume and a LinkedIn profile. Another big mistake that I see a lot of PhDs making is they don't think that they can go back to their LinkedIn or resume and frequently update it. They think they get it set in stone, like how many of us learn to create a CV and maybe update it once every 6 months or a year and just keep adding pages to it and it's kind of set. That's how it works in academia. It doesn't work like that in industry. So get your resume done to the best of your ability, your LinkedIn profile done to the best of your ability, even if you're not sure which individual position is right for you, even if you only know that you want to go into industry. Start thinking about industry words that matter. Start thinking about the skill sets you have that showcase that you can work in industry even if you don't have industry experience. Get your resume and LinkedIn profile done because I assure you, as soon as you start networking and meeting people, as soon as you start setting up informational interviews, people will be going to your LinkedIn profile to evaluate whether or not you look like an industry professional. They will be asking for your resume, and you will be you'll sink to the bottom of the list. You'll stop your job search in its tracks if they go to your LinkedIn profile and they see that you have a lab coat on, or if you're in front of library books at a desk, you have a headshot that's not professional. You need to dress like you would dress for an interview. Get what's called a corporate headshot. That should be used as your LinkedIn profile. Put industry skills, the transferable skills throughout your LinkedIn profile. Your resume, same thing, and make sure that your work experience section is framed. Again, it's front facing where you want to go. It's industry specific, talking about results, etc. Okay, so again, get your professional profiles done first. As soon as I had those done, I would start figuring out which positions are right for me. I tried to narrow it down to the 2 or 3 top positions that I wanted to get into. Most PhDs get stuck right there. They know that there's industry and academia, and that's it, A or B, and then industry is this black box. They have no idea what else is beyond industry. If they worked in the lab or if they did a specific skill set in academia, if they taught in academia, they only think about positions in industry that are very similar to that when there might be all kinds of positions available to them. And ironically, PhDs who have a strong background in research don't do research to find out what jobs are because they don't know where to start. So what I recommend is instead of starting by looking at different job titles or just Googling job titles for PhD, which means you're probably not going to come up with very much because there's all different kinds of job titles, lots of variations of every type of analyst, lots of variations of every type of scientist or engineer. Instead, I recommend figuring out what kind of professional lifestyle you want to have. Think about the qualities that make up different jobs. Do you want to travel frequently? Do you want to work in-house or remotely? How important is salary on a scale of, you want to be in the top 10% of industry jobs paying the most, or is somewhere in the middle okay? Do you want an innovative position, a position where you're working maybe closer to R&D, the bench, closer to the conception of a product or service, or more on the commercialization side? Once the product or service has gone to market, maybe you're supporting it afterwards. There's a whole spectrum there. Where do you want to be on that spectrum? and then figure out which job titles fit that professional lifestyle, fit those qualities. Don't do what most PhDs do. They focus on their niche PhD background and think that they have to get a job title that somehow matches that niche PhD background. It doesn't work like that. In industry, people think much more generally. They don't hire a computational analytical chemist. They hire a chemist or maybe even just a scientist one. Okay, so what I would do is I would figure out the professional lifestyle I wanted. I'd start to zero in on the job titles that would allow me to live out that professional lifestyle. And then I would start setting up informational interviews where you interview people that are in those different jobs to see if that's a job I actually want. I see a lot of PhDs transition, especially when the hiring market is up, when PhDs getting hired right now is the highest it's ever been, but too many PhDs are getting into jobs that are not right for them. They're entry-level positions where they get into the job and they find out, I'm working beneath people with their bachelor's or their master's degree. This isn't a good fit, because they were just in desperation mode trying to get a job. They didn't do their research. They didn't set up informational interviews. Again, interviewing people that are in the positions they're interested in to find out if that's what they actually want. So these are the steps that I would take. And then I would drive home my job search by changing my thresholds. Instead of going after one job lead at a time, I'd go after multiple job leads at a time, hopefully getting multiple job offers at the same time that I could leverage against each other. So many PhDs want to stay in their comfort zone by focusing on everything that they have to finish up in academia, or everything that could go wrong, or all the reasons why they can't get a job, instead of just going after the next job lead, the next job lead, the next job lead. We see people in our Cheeky Scientist Association interviewing and getting hired when they have 30, 40, 50 different job leads at a time. That's when you'll have multiple interviews every week. You'll get multiple offers at the same time. In one sense, it's just a numbers game. Yes, quality matters, but you have to increase your tolerance for reaching out to people, going after job leads. Quit just locking onto one job lead at a time and hoping it works out. And then when it doesn't, feeling a sense of rejection, not doing anything for 2 weeks, and then going after one job lead again. So those are the changes that I would make. I would get my professional profiles done, LinkedIn, resume. I'd figure out the professional lifestyle I wanted, start looking at job titles, interview people that are in those jobs. They'll gladly give you those interviews. Most of them will give you referrals after those interviews because they get a referral bonus if you get hired. Then I would change my thresholds. I would follow up a lot more. Instead of following up once with somebody if they don't answer, I'd follow up 3, 4, 5 times by adding value to them, not asking for something right away, but adding value, complimenting their work, etc. And this is what I would do. And on a daily basis, what does this look like? On a daily basis, this means reaching out to 10, 20 people a day, reaching out to or following up with 10, 20 people per day. Now, a lot of you, again, that was a lot. You're probably thinking, wow, it's like getting a job is a second job in itself. Of course it is, but you just need one yes. And then you can finally get paid what you're worth as a PhD for doing meaningful work. So I hope this answers your question. Hope it breaks it down in terms of what you need. Sequence does matter. I would not start networking and reaching out without having gone through your resume, your LinkedIn profile, and get it up to at least that 80% level of professionalism. And then when I reach out, I wouldn't just ask people to get me a job. I'd set up those informational interviews, instead ask how they got into their job. Right? It's the difference between asking somebody to help you move your apartment and asking them about anything that they learned the last time they moved their apartment. They're much more likely to help you if you ask the second question. As always, remember your value as a PhD and start thinking and acting like a successful industry professional.